Hello students, this is the video for standard 9 bio. In this video, I'll be discussing about the seeds. In the previous video, we have completed up to pollination and fertilization. Now we will see what happens to the fertilized zygote, and after that how does the seed formation takes place. Now, as I have told you in that previous video, that seed is the ripened ovule, fruit is the ripened ovary. So, what happens is, after fertilization, after the zygote formation, that zygote undergoes multiple cellular division and leads to the formation of an embryo. Now, that embryo, it is placed safely inside the seed. Now, what is that seed? So, if you remember the embryo sac which is inside the ovule, so that ovule, after fertilization, the future development or the next formation of the ovule is, it leads to the formation of seed. Now, surrounding that ovule, there is the ovary, that ovary, ripened ovary, that leads to the formation of the fruit. So, seed is placed inside the fruit. Then here again you will find one more term which is called as grain. What is that grain? See children, the seed, it has a particular covering which is called seed coat. In a seed we will find a covering called a seed coat. But in case of the fruit has a fruit wall, the seed has a seed coat. But in case of grains, what you will find is there is no distinction between the fruit wall and the seed coat. Instead, what happens in a grain is this fruit wall and the seed coat, they are fused together. So, we cannot distinguish between the fruit wall and the seed coat, and then it is known as a grain. For example, we call maize grain, rice grain, wheat grain, because in case of all these three examples which I said, the fruit wall and the seed coat, they are fused. Okay, now we will come to the classification of seeds. Classification of seeds. Seeds are classified basically on two basic types. First type is on the basis of cotyledons. So, some seeds are having only one cotyledon. They are called monocotyledonous seeds. Some seeds, they are having two cotyledons. They are dicotyledonous seeds. So, seeds having single cotyledon are monocotyledonous, and those having two cotyledons, they are dicotyledonous. Then what do you mean by cotyledon, children? Cotyledons are called the seed leaves, or these are the parts of the seed which store food for the developing embryo. Okay, now we come to another classification of seed, that is based on the presence or absence of endosperm. Endosperm, what is that endosperm? It is the stored food of the seed. If the seed contains endosperm, then it is called albuminous. If it does not contain endosperm, then it is ex-albuminous. So, based on the presence or absence of endosperm, seeds are albuminous or ex-albuminous. Okay, children, all these definitions are given in your book. You can learn the definitions and examples from the book. Then we come to the next part. Here we will discuss about the structure of the seed. First, we will discuss about a dicotyledon seed. The example of a dicotyledon seed is a bean seed. So we will see the diagram of a bean seed. If you see the diagram, you will find that it is in the like this shape. You will find, okay, concave in one side. So you will find that it has this seed. It is a dicotyledonous seed having two cotyledons. We will see when we open it up. Then at one end of the seed you will find there is one opening which is called micropyle. What is the function of this micropyle? It is the opening through which water is absorbed. It is the opening through which gaseous exchange takes place. This question also comes very often. Functions of micropyle. Then again, as I said, the seed will be surrounded by a seed coat. Okay, so this is the outer seed coat of the seed, which is called the seed coat, and it consists of testa and tegmen. Then we have, you will see there is a notch. This part you will see, this is called as a hilum. This notch is the hilum, through which it looks as a whitish scar, and this hilum, it is also, function is that it is the place or it is the spot through which the ovule is attached to the wall of the ovary. This hilum, micropyle, all will be asked as location and function. All these things are given in your book. You can learn from there. Then again, now what we will do is, when we open the seed up, we will see that this seed, it consists of a structure like this in the center, and you will find from both sides you will find two structures coming out. These two are the cotyledons, and this part which is present in the center, this is the embryo or the baby plant which is present inside the seed. Now, if you see the parts of this part, it leads to the formation of the shoot of the plant. So this is called plumule, and this part which gives rise to root of the plant, that is called radicle. And these two are the cotyledons. I told you these two are the cotyledons. So here you can see there are two cotyledons. So it is a dicot seed. Another thing what you will find is, this is called the embryonic axis, and from the point of attachment, this is the point of attachment of the cotyledons. The part of the embryonic axis which is above the point of attachment, it is called, what is that called, children? That is called epicotyl. And the part which is below the embryonic axis, that is the point of attachment, that is called hypocotyl. So the part of, what is the definition of epicotyl and hypocotyl? Epicotyl is the part of embryonic axis which is above the point of attachment of cotyledons. Hypocotyl is the part of embryonic axis which is below the point of attachment of cotyledons. So this is all about the structure of a dicot seed. Now next we will see the structure of, and what happens in future, this part plumule will grow into the shoot of the plant and radicle will grow into the root of the plant. Next we go to a monocot seed or a grain, means in which the seed coat and the fruit wall, they are fused. One example which is given in your book is the maize grain. So children, we will discuss about the structure of the maize grain. Now, why it is called as a grain, not as a seed? Yes, you are right, because the seed coat and the fruit wall, they are fused. So it is not distinguished, it is not identified separately as the seed coat and the fruit wall. So it is called as a grain. Now let's see what's the structure of the grain. You will see that this grain, it consists of a structure. If you see the LS or the longitudinal section, you will find that the structure is like this, children. It is a monocot seed, so it will have only one cotyledon, and here you will find the structure is more or less like this outermost structure, this is called as the fused pericarp. Fused pericarp. Pericarp is the wall of the ovary wall or fruit wall. Fused pericarp and testa. What is this testa? This is the seed coat. So pericarp and testa are fused, so it is a grain. Now inside that you will find a layer of protein. Okay, just below this epidermal layer you will find a layer of protein. This layer is called aleurone layer. What is that, children? All these things are there in your book. You will see there. Diagram is very, very important. You will practice all the diagrams. So this is the aleurone layer. Now inside the aleurone layer you will find endosperm. This is an endospermic seed having the stored food. This is the storage of starch. Then this endosperm is here. Then again here below this, the remaining portion, it is separated by an epithelial layer. This is one epithelial layer. And what is separated? Endosperm is separated from the embryonic part. And here you will find there is a very thin layer of cotyledon, very thin layer of cotyledon, and that is called scutellum. Very, very important. This all come as one word answer. Scutellum. It is the single layer of cotyledon which is present in endospermic seed or in the maize grain. Now, what about the embryo? The embryo consists of radicle and plumule. Plumule, as I told you, always the upper part, so that forms the shoot of the plant, and radicle, it is found towards the lower pointed end, that forms the root of the plant. So plumule and radicle, this together they will form the embryo. Now this radicle and plumule, these both are protected by extra protective sheath. Plumule is protected by coleoptile. The protective sheath of plumule is coleoptile and protective sheath of radicle is coleorhiza. So this is all about the structure of the maize grain. Here you have to stress on what is aleurone layer, then what is scutellum, plumule, radicle, coleoptile, coleorhiza. All these are very, very important. And a very important question which comes from here is, why is it called as a grain, not as a seed? Next, we come to the next topic after structure of seed we have discussed is germination. Now, after the formation of seed, the next important function of the seed is it will germinate. So, what is germination? What is the definition? The formation of the seedling from the embryo is called germination. Now, for germination to occur, certain conditions are required. First one is water. Second one, temperature. Third one, oxygen. So if these three conditions are available, then only the seed will germinate. If any one is lacking, the seed does not germinate. Before going into germination, let me tell you about dormant seed. What is this dormant seed? Dormant seed means the inactive seed, or the seed in which the embryo is in an inactive state, so that it cannot undergo germination. Why does this embryo undergoes an inactive stage? So that when the seed is formed inside the fruit, the embryo is in a very young and immature stage. So in this inactive stage, in this dormant period, this embryo will mature and then it is ready to give rise to a new plant. So after the dormant state is over, and in the dormant state what happens? That embryo obtains the nourishment from the cotyledons, from the endosperm. Now, when the dormant state is over, now the seed will we will provide water to the seed, moisture to the seed, we will provide a proper optimum temperature, and we will provide a supply of air. Then the seed will germinate and it will lead to the formation of a seedling. Clear? Now, what is the use of the water? It is given in your textbook, children. You will learn from there that seed, by providing water, the seed will swell and the seed coat will rupture so that the radicle and plumule will come out. Second function, in the presence of water, the chemicals which are present in the cotyledon, the enzymes, they will have an enzymatic reaction, and that nutrients which are present, that will be utilized by the embryo. And temperature, at very high and very low temperature, the seed cannot germinate. There is the requirement of an optimum temperature, that is 25 degrees centigrade to 35 degrees centigrade. If only this temperature is maintained, the seed will germinate. And third requirement is oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, respiration will take place and energy will be provided for germination. Then there are certain experiments given in your book, children. First experiment, to prove that water is essential for germination. For that, what we do, we will take two containers. In one, A and B, here also we will put some soaked seeds, here also some soaked seeds, but difference is, in one we will take cotton, put some moisture in it, in the other one we will put dry cotton. So what happens is, we will see that the wet cotton, the container which has wet cotton, the seeds will germinate, but the other one, the seed do not germinate. Then what do we find here? The condition which is absent in this is water. So by this we can prove that water is essential for germination. Second experiment, particular temperature is required. How we can prove that? We will again take two containers. One, we will keep it in the normal ordinary room temperature. The second one, we will put the seeds in the refrigerator. We find that the one which is placed in ordinary room temperature, the seeds germinate, and the one which is kept in the refrigerator, the seed do not germinate. This proves that the seeds require a proper temperature for germination. The third requirement we have discussed is oxygen. For that, what we do? We again take two containers. In one, we put the soaked seeds. The other one also, we put some soaked seeds. But the second condition, both one will be made airtight, and in one container, in a hanging test tube, we put some plain water, and in second container, we put some alkaline pyrogallic acid. Alkaline pyrogallic acid. Then we leave the experimental setup. We find that, and here both the conditions we will put wet cotton. Now we find that the seeds which are present in this plain water container, it will germinate, and the seeds which are present in this container, they do not germinate. So now we will come to the result. In this container we had taken plain water, but here we had taken alkaline pyrogallic acid. The function of alkaline pyrogallic acid is, it will absorb all the oxygen which is present here. So that means, in the absence of oxygen, the seeds could not germinate. So this experiment proves that oxygen is required for germination. Hope it is clear. Now next experiment, we go to the 3-bean seed experiment. This is very important. This you will do in your practicals also. In this 3-bean seed experiment, we will take a beaker containing some water, and here in a glass slide, we will consider 3 positions. In the 3 different positions, we will tie the seeds, and we find that the seed which is present in this position A does not germinate. the seed which is present in position B, this is position B, it will germinate. Again, the seed which is present in position C does not germinate. Now we will see why, what happens, what is the reason. The reason is seed A is getting proper temperature and oxygen, but it is not getting water. Seed C is getting some amount of dissolved oxygen containing proper temperature and excess of water. That also retards germination or stops germination. But condition B, the seed is getting proper temperature, proper amount of water and oxygen. So as all the conditions are fulfilled in seed B, so it will undergo germination. So from this single experiment, we can prove that seeds require proper temperature, water and oxygen for germination. One more very important thing you have to understand here, children, is control setup. Control setup. Now what is this control setup? It is the setup in which the condition under experimentation is absent. What is the meaning of that, children? Here you see I gave you two conditions. In this plain water, in this alkaline pyrogallic acid, and in this experiment we proved that oxygen is necessary for germination. So since in this experiment, in this setup, oxygen is absent, so it is the control setup. And in the control setup, the condition which we are studying has to be absent. So now you understood what is a control setup. Our next topic is, we move on to now, types of germination. So germination is basically of two types. Types of germination. Yes. So germination is basically of two types. One is hypogeal germination and second one epigeal germination. What is the meaning of this hypogeal and epigeal? I told you hypocotyl is the portion of the embryonic axis which is below the point of attachment, and epicotyl is the part of the embryonic axis which is above the embryonic axis. Now based on that, we have hypogeal and epigeal germination. Now in case of, first we see hypogeal germination. Here the epicotyl elongates faster. Epicotyl elongates faster. Elongates faster. So epicotyl is which part? That is the part of the seed which is above the point of attachment. This part is the epicotyl. So in case of hypogeal germination, this epicotyl will elongate faster. As the epicotyl is elongating faster, so if supposing this is the part, this is the layer of the soil, then as the epicotyl will elongate faster, so what we will find is this part of the embryonic axis will move out and the cotyledons will remain inside the soil. So in case of hypogeal germination, cotyledons remain underground. What about epigeal germination? Just opposite. What happens here is see the diagram. If this is the layer of the soil and these are the cotyledons, in case of epigeal germination, the hypocotyl will elongate faster. As a result, what happens? If the hypocotyl will elongate faster, what it will do is this hypocotyl is elongating. So as a result, this cotyledons, they will be pushed out. Clear? So in case of epigeal germination, the hypocotyl will elongate faster. So cotyledons are pushed above the ground. In case of hypogeal germination, epicotyl elongates faster. So cotyledons remain under the ground. These are the two basic differences between epigeal and hypogeal germination. In your book, Two examples are given, one for epigeal and one for hypogeal. For hypogeal germination, pea seed example is given. You can read from your book. See here children, in your books you can see here, this one, it is given the hypogeal germination. You can see cotyledons are remaining under the ground. The epicotyl is elongating faster. The shoot is above the ground and cotyledons remain under the ground. In case of epigeal germination, another example is given here. You can see this one. This is the bean seed. What happens? Hypocotyl is elongating, so cotyledon is pushed outwards. Detail is given. You can read from here. Hope what I have explained you have understood about epigeal and hypogeal germination. Then we come to one more last very important topic, viviparous germination. This comes as defined the following very often. You have heard about oviparous and viviparous. Oviparous means oviparous animals means animals laying eggs. Viviparous animals means animals giving birth directly to babies. Like that, viviparous germination means the type of seed germination in which the fruit is still attached to the parent plant. Normally in the previous germination what we have seen that the seeds are from the seeds, the embryos undergo the germination. But in this case, in viviparous germination, the seed will germinate when the fruit is still attached to the parent plant, and that is known as viviparous germination. Clear? So now with this we come to an seedling definition. You will learn from here. It is the first plant or the first shoot which comes out from a germinating seed, that is called as a seedling. So with this the chapter is over. Now we come to the exercise part. In the exercise part, the short questions you will be able to solve. These are the long question answers. Functions of the following. Location and function, very important children. You please go through. Then functions of the following in a seed. Seed coat is protection. Micropyle, I told you two functions, absorption of water and gaseous exchange. Plumule, it will form the future shoot of the plant. Cotyledon, provide nourishment to the growing embryo. Radicle forms the future root of the plant. Then prove that suitable temperature is necessary for germination. Already experiment is given in your book. Then potatoes kept in a basket during rainy season start giving out shoots. Will you call it germination? No, because germination takes place in a seed, but it will grow from a bud. It is the growth from the vegetative part. It is not germination. Two differences, epigeal, hypogeal, given in your book. Coleorhiza and coleoptile, you can write about. One is for radicle, one is for plumule. Then it is the outermost covering of the plumule, one is the outermost covering of the radicle. Bean seed and maize grain, differences are given in your books. You can learn from there. Then we come to next is germination and vivipary. Germination occurs outside the fruit. Vivipary occurs inside the fruit. In the germination, we require soil, moisture and temperature. But for viviparous, we do not require them because the the fruit is already attached to the plant. In case of germination, dispersal of seed is required. For viviparous germination, dispersal is not required. Then we come to next question. Justify that maize grain is one-seeded fruit. Yes, because it is a fruit because fruit wall and seed coat. It is there in your book here. You can find out this answer from this first paragraph, maize grain. You will find out the answer. Then next question. What is the role played by hypocotyl in epigeal germination, children? In epigeal germination, that is this one, this maize grain, this part, you will find the answer. What is the role of this hypocotyl in the epigeal germination? Then with regard to germination in bean seed, so from this bean seed germination part, you will find out all these answers. All these, I don't think it will be difficult for you to find the answers. Hope you will be able to solve the exercise part. Thanks for watching the video.